They were doing a lot of advertising for the Lost Romero film, The Amusement Park. And I know that it was made like back in like the 70s or something. And Romero had shot this on 16 millimeter. And it was announced, when was that? Like 2, 3 years ago, I feel like. And I know everybody was really excited because, Ramiro not being with us anymore, to know that his films from the 70s, which in a way was kind of like some of the peak of his career was throughout the 70s and early 80s. So we see that, and we want to see these films from his prime. So when the amusement park gets announced that they had found this lost 16 millimeter film, I think everybody was jumping up and down excited. I was. Um, and years of waiting, I have to say, doesn't feel right to judge the film on, because I know they had to do like a lot of 4K restoration work. I know they had to do a lot of rights things because they didn't know exactly where it was going. It was originally pulled, the film. I think it was pulled for like a film festival. They were doing a retrospective of George Romero's career, and they pulled the film originally out of like his archives, and they found it, and they were thinking like, we this film's never been released, we didn't even know it existed. And I guess that Ramiro had given up on like making, like, piecing it together. So they decided to go ahead and do it. It's happened a few times. I know it happened with some Orson Welles movies and stuff too. So it's not like uncommon that kind of stuff happens. There's a lot of lost films being rediscovered now. But the fact that Ramiro had one, it made me very excited. And I thought the trailer for it, when it came out a couple months ago, looked really promising too. So Shutter acquired it. It's on Shutter now. So I had to check it out the very first day. And I have to say, I can't really even like recommend or not recommend it, because it's more of like a public service announcement. It comes on basically, in the setup is this guy is at the end of his life. He's in this white room. He's not doing too hot. He's just given up. And a younger version of himself comes into the room, and he's like, why are you sitting in this room for, just staring? And he's like, have you given up? And the guy's like, there's nothing left. And he's like, well, let's go outside. Do you want to go outside? And the guy's like, I don't want, there's nothing for me outside. I don't want to see it. So he finally convinces this guy to try to come with him, which he refuses. So he decides to leave. And it's the older version of himself. The younger version opens up this door, and he sees this amusement park. And the amusement park's like lively, it's exciting, everybody's having a good time, and he's like overtaken by it with joy. So he goes out into this world in this theme park, and what really happens is he starts seeing the world a different way. The actor, the main guy, I don't even know the guy's name because a lot of them was volunteers. He comes on at the very beginning of the film, and he said most of these films don't judge the acting too harshly on our film, because most of these actors are volunteers. All of them gave their time. They were a lot of elderly people who were involved in making the amusement park, and they have not been given the opportunity to really go out of the house much. So making this movie was the most joy they've had in years, because they don't have any family, a lot of them don't, or any kind of like social ways to be social, because they're so elderly, and some of them were sick. So that's how they set up the entire film before it begins. So as he goes around this amusement park, you can start seeing the actors. And it plays a lot on like metaphor and symbolism. Like some of the actors are, there's like this one scene where the actors are like buying time, and you could tell like the metaphor buying time is because he keeps handing this clock over, and he wants more money for it. And this guy in the amusement park's like not willing to buy it for more than $5. And he's like, I need like at least 15 to like live on. I don't have enough money to make it with just $5. And the guy's like, well, that's as good as I can do. $5, sorry. So it kind of plays on that. There's like a lot of social roles and stuff. It doesn't really go horror. The only horror there really is like the real world, which, I mean, I guess the real world you would classify as kind of, it's kind of a shit show sometimes. So I could understand how that can go kind of like surrealist. So it definitely was like experimental, surrealist kind of filmmaking because it wasn't linear. It didn't like really do anything cutting edge. But it did like I think it did show like a lot about like elder abuse. Showed a lot about people like looking back at their life when they're older and they weren't able to fulfill what they wanted to do. They didn't get to go out and do what they wanted to do, and they just wish they could have started again. And this kind of shows the story of a guy that went out young and he felt good and he was having a good time, and then by the end of it, he's not doing good anymore. He doesn't want to go outside. He's shriveled up in a room by himself. So in a way that kind of like attests to like the way that we treat the elderly. But even as I'm telling you this right now, when you think of George Romero, you really don't think of him making a movie like that. So it's kind of strange how he can like this was like the height of like him making, night. This was right after Night of the Living Dead, a few years. It was right during when he was making Dawn of the Dead. He was making all these zombie films, and he was becoming such a big, director. And this was just a few years before he went and did like Creep Show and all these collaborations and stuff like that as well. So it's kind of weird to see how the amusement park just kind of fits in his filmography in that way. So I mean, I definitely would recommend checking it out as a Ramiro fan, but it's not really a film that you could judge. But I mean, like they were really hyping it up whenever I was at the Monroeville Mall about how that was like the lost film to see it, and this is it. Like this is Ramiro. Ramiro has nothing else after this. This is the last one, the true last film he has in his filmography. So, as a completist that tries to see all the Ramiro stuff in the past, I mean, if you had to watch his last film, you know what I mean? It's just like one of those things. So that's the amusement part.
Definitely different. I haven't seen it yet, so I mean, I will eventually check it out. I just from where I've heard that it hasn't, that it's not horror really. That's the only put off I've really had of watching it, because I want to see something a little bit more deep with horror than just drama.
Dude, it's not classic Ramiro at all. It's something that's completely different. And I mean, it's really weird for him, but I definitely think that it's worth checking out at one point, but I wouldn't rush to see it.